Okay, I'll call the meeting to order at 6:44. This is a meeting of the Hubbardston Economic Development Committee, Wednesday, January 19th, 2022. This is a joint meeting with the Planning Board, Hubbardston Planning Board, and I thank everybody for being here. I think we need to maybe, Peter, if you could read Governor Baker's open meeting law for us to start, that would be great.
You ready?
We're ready.
All right. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, and the Governor's March 15th order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Hubbardston Economic Development Committee will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and or parties with a right and or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the town website. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via Zoom. In the event we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the town's website a comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting.
Thank you. Okay, everybody has a copy of the agenda that we sent out. Everybody seen it?
Yes.
Okay. You want to vote on it?
What was that?
Last month we voted on it.
We voted on what?
After we review the meeting, the agenda.
Do you mean the minutes from the last meeting, perhaps? Okay.
Yeah, possibly. Okay. So welcome to the Planning Board. Thank you very much. The first topic on the agenda is to talk about the agriculture accessory use bylaw. Alice, as you probably know, your committee has much experience with this than ours does. So I think what we'd like to maybe find out are, what you anticipate as the next steps moving forward in terms of, the process or surveys and presentations. If you could give us a little overview of what you think, would be appropriate steps to be taken, then maybe we can come back to our committee for any questions about that process.
Well, I don't know who's taking the lead on actually drafting this, because we don't have, Christopher and I have batted back and forth some notes on drafts, but what I did in drafting the other bylaws
Madam Chair, do we have to call the planning board to order also?
She said it was a joint meeting. Do you think that's enough? I can.
Yeah, but I believe we need to call the planning board.
All right, this is for the sake of the recording, because maybe it was before you, the speaker. Alice Livedall, who's chair of the planning board, and I'll call the planning board to order. We do have a quorum tonight. We have Christopher Monroe, myself, Francois Steiger, and our alternate member, Erica Deck. So that's a quorum. So anyway, we're called to order. So going back to that question from Whitney, what I had done in drafting other bylaws was get interested parties together and then work through a list of what you would like to see in this bylaw, and then draft from there. I don't know that we have gotten through that first step where there's a consensus on, what we want to see in it. So I've also been working on a few other bylaws. So yeah. I've given Christopher a lead on this one. So Christopher, maybe you want to weigh in here.
Yeah, absolutely. I've spent a lot of time looking at this, and I've spent a lot of time looking at both of the samples that we have. And I think there's some differences between where we are at as a town and where either Rutland or Bolton were at. And I think where the goals are. So I think the first step that we need to nail down in addition to how we want to approach this, is what do we really want to accomplish with this? Because not to go into a discussion of the individual elements, but just as an example, some of the restrictions that are in those sample bylaws, we're going to have a tough time with here in town, because we don't have a lot of large commercial farm enterprises. So if we were to do some kind of restriction that required you to have a large commercial enterprise to offset, it might create an issue on usability. So I just bring that up as an example, because I think we have to look at what we actually have for farms in the town. And I think we need to look and see what people are actually doing, because there are currently people who are doing many of these accessory uses, and take a survey of that and use that as a lens to kind of look at these samples. I know from just playing with them, I think what is likely going to be the outcome is something that looks more like Rutland, but has some tweaks to it that make it Hubbardston specific, is probably going to be the right answer. But I think we need to go through a little bit of a process, especially since there's already so much happening on the ground. So I would recommend we put together some kind of working group or committee to look at a couple of those things and set a date to report back with that kind of foundational information, like what the average farm looks like, the uses that are already going on, and the uses that make sense out of that.
Okay.
Christopher, I also think it might be helpful. There is a farm organization in town. I think it's part of I think it's actually a official committee in town, isn't it?
Yeah, there's the Agricultural Commission.
Yeah, and I think that they ought to be invited to participate in this.
Okay.
Anybody think otherwise? I mean,
No, I agree, and I'll reach out to them.
I talked to. Great idea. Sorry, Whitney. This is why I hate Zooms. We all talk on each other. Go ahead, Whitney.
No, I think it's a great idea, and I would volunteer to reach out to them for sure, and to include them in this, to update them and bring them in. I think it's important.
Yeah, I've reached out to a few of them, especially Plainview. Keith used to be the chair. Now I think Alice from Friendly Ass Farm is the chair, I believe. But don't quote me on that. I'm not 100% on that.
Okay.
But I've reached out to them, and Keith was very interested in this. But yeah, they need to be roped in on this, because this is their wheelhouse, and they would be able to answer some of these questions a lot better than any of us.
Yeah, okay. There's certainly long-term policy implications that go with it, in addition to just the agricultural concept, just the supporting agriculture concept. Like, for example, by making these properties more useful in that kind of way, it could potentially stall their development into like single family housing or some of those things. So there are some longer term things to think about in there. So the idea of doing it with the commission, with some EDC and with some planning board, I think is going to be the right way. Procedurally, though, does that take the form of a working group, or does that take the form of a subcommittee? I know isn't there a difference between the two from a meeting law standpoint?
Well, you can only be a subcommittee of a committee. So I don't know how you do a subcommittee of 3 committees. I mean, I just don't know.
That's true. I guess it would be a working group.
What would a quorum be, for example, right? Add all the members and divide by 6.
That's a good question.
Although if I remember correctly, and I know that other members who are here tonight were with us when Jennifer spoke with us a couple of months ago when she attended one of our meetings. My understanding was that a subcommittee would be, we would pull from several different committees and ask individual people from those committees or have volunteers from those committees to join this subcommittee. That was what she put in our format, or our platform, if you will, for the other bylaw that we're working on. So I would think if that was something that she suggested to us, then that would legally be okay to do. But we can ask her that this evening in part 2, you know, of tonight's meeting. You know, if that was my understanding of how to create this subcommittee. She said the subcommittee would be made up of individual members from different committees, as well as perhaps she said it would also be beneficial to have what she called stakeholders. That in this case would be a farmer, a home-based business, that kind of thing, you know, private citizens or residents that would have a stake and something to offer to this. That was my understanding. I don't know if anybody understood it the same way.
Well, look at the way the ARPA committee was formed. You took a couple from this committee, a couple from that committee, an outside person. So it could be kind of like built like the same way the ARPA is constructed.
Yeah.
But Katie, wasn't that committee appointed by the select board in the end, or some recognition? Okay, so.
Yeah, it's a full-on committee that's subject to public meeting and open meeting laws and all of that stuff.
So that's what we need to think about.
It's not just a working group, so.
So a working group would maybe be a good first step where you didn't have to. I mean, it's hard to hold a public meeting when you don't have any kind of idea where you're going in the first place. You know, maybe that working group could just be a working group of 3 that set out not to define what the bylaw might say, but to, you know, to put together a list of things to consider. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yep.
Recommendations.
Yeah, the important and why I particularly pushed for both committees to get together for tonight is just so we can get that first little step towards the active doing. So even if what we get out of it is yeah, we're going to put together a small working group, EDC, planning board, somebody from the Agricultural Commission, just to kind of come up with specifications and get something that we can start working forward. Because when I first looked at this, I was like, oh, we can do what we do with a lot of bylaws. We can just copy a model from another town, make some small tweaks to it. But I think the reality of the economics is going to be a little different. I think we're going to have to do more work than just pulling something over to make sure it fits what's already happening on the ground.
Right. I agree. I agree. One of the things that Katie and I have discussed over the last couple of weeks, and Peter and I have as well, is, you know, I think one of the things that maybe would be helpful to determine tonight is, you know, is our commitment going to be to have these accessory businesses on these farms to hold them to, let's say, to not bringing in a greater profit than the farm itself. And I bring that up because of some of the recent kind of movement with one of the properties, okay? If such a venue as they had proposed is to pass and be accepted, then does this need to be changed from accessory use to a different name, like the farming agritourism or farm agritourism bylaw? If we're not going to hold it and we would permit, a profit that's larger than the farm, then it would not fall under accessory or ancillary or anything like that. So I think we need to kind of make a decision if holding, when I say holding, that sounds rough, but I think you know what I'm saying, you know, to restrict it to not making more of a profit than the farm itself or the farming itself. I think that's one of probably the first things that we need to determine. And if we opened it up to not holding them to a lesser profit, does that really serve the farms themselves and maintain them as farms for the long haul, as, you know, part of a farming community?
Whitney, quick question for you. I've thought about this. I think probably everybody's thought about it based on the Holden or the Rutland bylaw.
Yeah.
Just personally, I think an area restriction would be better than a monetary restriction. If you're going to use a restriction, so you'd say, you know, the accessory business use, you know, can't exceed more than 50% or 20, whatever you want, area of the farming consumed by the farming use, right? So we actually, if the property you're talking about is 28 George Howard Road, I don't know if it is.
It is,
but
yeah.
We've had several people approach us on that.
Yeah.
And one may actually hand us a bylaw because we said we're very honest about where we were in the process. But
sure,
their project, for example, would be to do hay fields, grow hay, and it would be, you know, we'd probably pull in 5% of the income, right? But it would cover 90% of the property, right? I mean, just rough numbers speaking. So it's just an option as opposed to money. If you want to have that kind of restriction, I think makes more sense.
Okay.
Yeah, I would suggest that we have that be something that develops and evolves in the process, because to Alice's point, yeah, there are other ways to do it, and I don't think we want to be in a position where what we're doing is essentially creating a new form, just a completely new form of zoning where anyone can do whatever they want as long as it looks like a farm. I don't think that's what we're trying to propose here. So there are going to have to be some measures and some restrictions that are based upon land usage, character and nature of the property, like those kinds of things. But to the point, yeah, it's tough if you have a 50% restriction on income and what your business is selling hay. It's
agreed.
Takes a lot of land, doesn't make a lot of money.
Right.
You could have an either or, you know, a series of criteria too. You don't must a revenue criteria or a land area criteria. Anyway.
Okay.
It's also worth noting that that 28 George Howard property is trying to fit under a regular special permit set of criteria that we have there. It's not currently affecting it or looking at the bylaw, and it's a separate set of questions for a regular special permit. Well, yeah, but
one's the alternate route with an allowed use, and one is the other is the hay farmer. So hay farmer / event person. So they've got a couple of people contending for the property, but
right. Okay. And then I'll say, and then I'll turn it over to someone else. That at our last meeting, I had mentioned, is there an obligation, let's say, to consider as we're proposing this, future sales of these properties? Okay. And that we want to some degree maintain them as farms, and have them to some degree always be considered, farm and agricultural use. When we create these recommendations for this bylaw, do we put any consideration into possible eventual sales of these properties and how to maintain that they would remain within our agricultural landscape?
Whitney, generally, if you grant a special permit, which is usually our mechanism for allowing these things, the special permit runs with the land, kind of. So if the person sells it and the next person comes in and they want to run the same business in the same location, they can do that. And I don't know. I mean, licenses are different. Licenses sort of go with the person. But if you're really talking about a zoning structure for this, it would run with the land. And then if that person bought, say, the building that was the event facility and they decided to turn it into a brewery, they'd have to come back and get another special permit and relinquish the one that exists, So does that answer your question a little bit? And Christopher, you agree?
Yeah, and I can provide a little more color to that too because of what Bolton does. So in Bolton, it has to be under an agricultural preservation restriction. But the problem with all those types of restrictions is you can take it out just by giving the town the opportunity to purchase and paying the back taxes. So even that kind of restriction isn't truly permanent. But to what Alice's point is about it, the special permit running with the land itself, yeah, that's a little different.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay. Does anyone else from our committee have any questions at this point?
The only thing I have to say is I think we're definitely going to need a name change for this, whatever we're going to do. I mean, ag accessory, you can't say ag accessory. I mean, I suppose you can if you you're talking about, you know, a percentage of the land that can fall under ag accessory, but the special permit part of the land won't. Am I correct in saying that?
Well, I don't know that we've done this before, but I would sort of visualize you'd have your set of criteria, whatever it is, say 25% of the land or 25% of the income or whatever that standard is, right? Mm-hmm. And you can't, the planning board doesn't have any way to like subdivide the land and say, well, it's this 25% of the farm, or, right. You know what I mean? So it would be, it would be a special permit to, as shown in the site plan, operate that business, and you would couple it with a site plan that would show where the business is located.
Okay.
I don't know whether that answers your question, but
yeah, I think one of the challenges there is that there's different models on how to do the approvals. Like whether you're talking about something like, for example, look at the Rutland one, where you have this whole list of things where you're essentially just allowed to do by right. And then you have a category of stuff that requires a site plan. And then there's a special permit level. Then like if you look at Bolton, pretty much everything other than that narrow band of allowed uses all goes through special permit. So it depends upon which level of use it is. That affects the answer to that.
Thank you.
Okay.
I think that kind of makes sense, because if you think of somebody who wants to put a stand to sell the produce there, you know, and maybe some, in addition to that, local craft products and so forth, that could be as of right? What if you're going to have a big event facility, you know, an event facility with parking and a lot of issues, you would want a special permit. So that kind of makes sense, actually. The allowed uses and the special permit uses. But again, the working committee could try to work on these things, right?
Yes.
So I just have a quick question about, do you think it's more beneficial for the town to have, you know, more allowed uses that are kind of black and white in the bylaws versus too much being done just by special permit? Because I think when, you know, you have potential buyers for, you know, land, or they want to open a business, some towns just, it's so easy to just go right on their town website, pull up their bylaws, completely understand, you know, what's allowed where. And then there's other towns where it seems like everything is SP, 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 SP. And I think sometimes too much special permitting, people, you know, the buyers, investors, business, you know, people, whoever, yeah, I don't really, you know, I'll go to another town where I can kind of understand what I'm getting myself into, so I don't have to sit at a million town meetings and all that stuff. So I'm just curious what, you know, your opinions are on that.
I think that's a really good point, actually. You should be on this committee, this thinking group.
I'm just saying by experience as a real estate.
No, it makes sense.
You know?
Absolutely. I'm sure what you're saying is true.
Yep. We have, we have
Go ahead.
fairly restrictive zoning in Hubbardston.
Very restrictive.
And some to the better, some to the worse. It's tough to argue, or rather it's tough to kind of gauge what the support would be for doing something about that, but that would be a very major project.
A very what? I'm sorry, a very what project?
A very major project.
Okay.
To pull together support and make a revision to some of that stuff. If you're talking about kind of past the scope of what we're talking about here with these additional agricultural uses.
Oh, I thought Denise was just talking about agriculture. You're talking about, as we think about this bylaw for the farm use?
Yeah, I mean, in general, just everything. I mean, some towns just, it's very easy to know what you can do where, basically, you know, before you get too deep into, you know, having to deal with all the special permits. That's all. So it was more out of curiosity, you know, and maybe it's something for more the future.
We'll try to keep it in mind.
Speak to that, you know, as you know, we've been working on the small business booklet, the Hubbardston Small Business Booklet, and we can certainly ask those departments to include some more detailed information to be included in the small business guide, and if not to be included in the guide, then perhaps to have a link in the guide somewhere where they can find all of that information out. We are working on those things so that people can, because Denise is a realtor, and I'm sure that you hear that, you know, those kind of comments regarding a lot of different departments. And so that's one of the reasons why I've, you know, really been, you know, kind of, you know, repeatedly asking different departments to supply us with that information for the small business guide. So as much of that information would, you know, that people would be looking for would be in that guide, or a link from that, you know, in that guide, giving them that information. I think it's all important, and we are working on that. We're just waiting for the information to get back to us. It's been a long time, but it's coming, I hope, coming soon.
So, yeah, to Denise's comment about having things kind of black and white, and especially the simpler things to be very black and white and upfront, I think that definitely has to be on this bylaw. I think it would just be helpful to attempt to salvage the farms that we have and keep them going and sustainable, but also there's so many farms in this town that are not currently used as farms that could open up the possibility of people actually wanting to come here and start up and resurrect one of the farms that has gone to the wayside and is all overgrown and whatever. It's, if you give people an option to be able to make money farming, you're more likely to actually have them do it, you know, and use a lot of these properties that are just sitting there with barns kind of falling down upon themselves, or being, you know, not used, and hay fields overgrowing and things like that. It's just, it's the nature of the beast. If you can't make money at it, why are you going to do it? You're not going to break your back and work another job, and your other half is going to work a job to come home and kill yourself working the third job that doesn't have money. So it's keeping the simple stuff black and white. And then if the larger stuff, especially stuff that requires, like Alice said, parking, or if there's toilets involved, structures, things like that, definitely need to have some kind of oversight. So you can't just go willy-nilly and go crazy. You know, it's, we want a happy medium with this, but I definitely think we need to write it correctly and make it easy to read, so that way we encourage people to farm in our community, where we are a right to farm community, and everyone likes the space and the open.
But I had brought that up to you a couple of weeks ago. I had made that very suggestion. I said I would be willing to go out and talk to these existing farms to see, because I think a great thing to do in the town would be to have available, land for people who don't have land, okay, who might want to do some farming, who might want to, be involved in agriculture. They don't have it because of where they're zoned or their property and that kind of thing. And it might be an additional stream of income for existing farmland. But you had pointed out when I had suggested that the majority of farms of which you were speaking were owned by some of our senior citizens, and you didn't really feel that they would want to be involved with anything at all except retiring and sitting back and relaxing. So, but if you've changed your mind or you're, we're on the same page now, I think that's a great opportunity for people. And I think people would take advantage of that. I really do. Community gardens, all kinds of things.
But that's a whole secondary thing compared to the actual making of the bylaw that would allow them to do all the extra stuff to go along with the farming. That's a whole
we
second.
Could include it in there. I think that would be that would be a great recommendation for it. I really do. For farmers or people with farmland to open that farmland to other residents to come and rent that space from them. On a regular basis for farming and maybe even events as well. I think that should be included for sure.
Well, yeah, but again, we need the bylaw in order to do that. So you're putting the
but we need to include things in the bylaw, and that all I'm saying is that should probably be one of our points.
Yes, and I did talk with George down in the town assessor's office and also a couple tax people, just out of curiosity about, like what happens when, especially the tax people, like what happens when the accessory use is making more than the farm and kind of switching that out.
Where are you talking about? Are you talking about Rutland?
No, I talked to people, tax people, and I also talked to George in the assessor's office.
I see. I'm sorry. I didn't know that.
So the tax people, I talked to them about what happens if they're, is there a problem with the like say they did a wedding venue or whatever, is there going to be a problem for tax purposes for filing them doing chapter, 61A for farming, agriculture, that kind of stuff? Is there a problem if their accessory business starts making more than their farm? And as right now, so far what I've gotten, it's not a problem with the farm. They can still be under the 61A, because what that does is it makes the land itself, according to George, the land itself falls into a tax bracket lower. But the building, so say they built the wedding venue and everything like that, that would be taxed regular. That doesn't fall under the lower tax rate to keep it in the farm. All that kind of big stuff that they would be adding stays a regular tax rate. So the town would still be getting money off the accessory buildings, anything they did fancy. There's no cut on those. It's just the land they're farming. So there's not a problem with that. There's not a problem with they'd have to like file doing business as and have a secondary business for tax purposes. It's not going to kick them out of chapter 61A or any of those. So I did follow up on that kind of stuff just in case, because I wasn't sure how like things like Stone Cow, if there's a problem, is there something that's going to get us sideways that we don't know because we're not tax people, and right. The tax people in the assessor's office both said that it should be a problem like this to make where they could do a bigger facility or something bigger than what their farm brings in. So I did ask those questions in case anybody cared about any of that.
Yeah, that's good questions. It kind of makes sense because if you have a house lot, you can put, the rest of your land, it's in that big piece and on a big piece of land in the chapter land, right? So they must be used to, thinking of the land in separate components like that.
Yeah.
It makes sense. So if you had a barn, it was really being used as a barn, it could be on the 61 land, the chapter land. But if you converted the barn to the wedding venue, then it'd be taxed as a regular building. Got it. Good points. Yeah.
Good.
So I think we have well, we have one obvious question. How can we set up either, well, we need to figure out which is appropriate, be it an advisory group, a working group, a subcommittee. Each of those words have different legal significance for the open meeting law and for publication requirements and stuff like that. I don't know off the top of my head what the right answer and right procedural way for the EDC or the planning board to go on that. That might need to be referred to the select board to set up, but I don't know for sure without going to the books on it.
Well, let's make sure that we ask that to Jennifer and then next later on in the meeting.
Well, why don't we, if you're going to go with the question, think of it not as a legal point, but how do you see a kind of a, you know, what would you like to see the group composed of, and what would you like to see its task be? You know, because it matters, right? So you're thinking of like 6 people, which would be 2 from each, but less, or 2 people from each of the 3 boards, or 1 from each of the 3 boards. What do you think would work? And what would their goal be? Would be only to make recommendations. They wouldn't have any decision-making power beyond that, right?
That's right. Yeah.
So that's what I would suggest as a structure. I mean, as a group, the concept, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I
look at this as this group coming together, whether it's considered a subcommittee, a working group, whatever, to create recommendations for this, and then to pass those recommendations on. So there's no decision making, you know, in terms of passing it or not. It's just recommendations that we come up with that, you know, kind of fine tune it and pass it on to y'all and go from there. And that was kind of the way it was described, you know, to me from Ryan, was that we were to, in particular, talking about the commercial district overlay, was to make recommendations for that bylaw. So that's kind of what I'm looking at, is that we are to, you know, create recommendations for it and work from that. So that word recommendation sticks out in my mind. These are just our thoughts. This is what we, you know, we feel would benefit it and like that. And those recommendations can not only include those fine points, but they could include things like whether we should have visual presentations, surveys, and that kind of thing going into this. I know, you know, time is running out. You want to have, you know, we want to have this on the 2022. And so, you know, I think things like that, presentations and all that, probably need to be determined a little bit sooner than later, if we're to go that route.
I don't know that you can make that time frame, but
I know.
If it's going to be a zoning bylaw, and you know, we have general bylaws and we have other bylaws in the town, but if it's going to take the framework of zoning bylaw, it's very, very strict in the statute. We have to have public hearings and, you know, things. You can't just put it on the warrant because you've got an agreement between boards.
Right.
So, and the warrant is open now. I don't know when they're going to close it, but the turnaround time for the stuff.
Well, I think the email said, I got one tonight, and I think it said everything has to be in, I believe it said April 11th.
Let me double check. Hold on. So I don't want to say a wrong date.
I got it today. Please be advised. The select board opened the warrant for June 7th annual town meeting. Submit all articles from, you know, later than Monday, April 11. Annual town meeting warrant is open.
Yep.
April 11th at 12 noon. That's what I got.
Yep.
Well, yeah.
But even still, that's like 3 months. And you have to have 30-day notice for an open meeting. So really, you have to have your open, you know, you have to put notification in for an open meeting by what? The March, beginning of March.
That's right.
The end of March, in order to make sure you hit your deadline and have everything in for April.
I will tell you that just for, Bolton told me, I can't remember the young lady's name. Anyhow, she told me that it took them 9 months to a year, and Rutland was almost a little bit over 2 years.
And you're talking a month.
Hey,
let's go, everybody, pencils up, let's go.
Hey, I'm there. I'm there. I'll get on the phone in the morning. I'll do whatever needs to be done in the morning. One thing that I really, I brought this up at our last meeting, and I think that Christopher thought that it was a main question. Alice, as you know, we are also working on this commercial overlay district bylaw. And what I want to find out is, if these both going in at the same time, of course, this was delayed a year due to COVID and a little the John Hume no longer being with MRPC and nobody knowing that, et cetera. Okay, so they've extended it for us. And so my question is, do you think that, we're going to try and get both of these in for for 2022. Do you think that either one of them would potentially damage the other one from passing by the mere fact that they're going in at the same time? And if they are, we really might need to revisit on either end to see if there's a way to, maybe set one for 2023. So I know it's a tough question, but I needed your gut feeling about that. If having them going at the same time is going to jeopardize either one of them, then I really want this to be a one and done, and I don't want to have to come back and do it again.
You're asking me?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Yeah. Well, I just want to say the planning board also had 3 bylaws that we were putting in, one of which you're familiar with. It's the accessory use bylaw, which would replace the in-law, the accessory dwelling unit bylaw, which replaced the bylaws. So that's one. Right. One is the rate of growth bylaw, which just got blown out of the water by the Attorney General, so that isn't going to go. And a very complicated bylaw, this battery energy storage that we've been working on for 2 years, especially Francois, who's here very tenaciously. And we're really trying to get that on the agenda. So, I don't know. You ask people, what's your tolerance for zoning bylaws? I just think you don't have the time to do either one of them, really. That's my honest feeling. So pick one and put full steam ahead on that, and we can see if we can make it. I mean, if you want. If the overlay is easier because you've got all the concepts firmly in your mind and a map, and maybe that would be the place to start and let the farm bylaw go, but very difficult when you're amending a map too. So I don't know enough about where that project stands.
Yeah. Well, Jennifer did mention at one of our meetings that she thought that it would be prudent when this same question was asked of her, and she felt that it would be prudent to do the overlay first, because she thought that it might benefit the accessory use bylaw. So Christopher, you're going to be able to stay with us, right, for the other half of the meeting, right?
Yes, and Jennifer has since joined the meeting.
Okay, good. Oh, well, do we want to ask her to answer that right now, perhaps?
Hi, Jennifer.
If she's willing to. Hi, Jennifer. And I just wanted to find out what she based that on, and maybe that will help us make a decision.
Yeah, I think it really ultimately comes down to what the town wants to move forward. I mean, they can be tied, whether you're trying to promote agricultural uses in the town center, they can be, connected. But ultimately, I really think it comes down to the goals of the community and what you want to move forward. I can't make that decision for the town of Hubbardston. It's really a community and a board decision.
But when you mentioned before that it might, by having the overlay go in before, you said it might benefit the ag use bylaw? And can you
Well,
tell me
I guess if there's if there's uses, for example, say that you, I don't know, you have an ag type of use that they also want to be able to use in the town center. It might be a way of looking at it. I mean, I've worked on both. I've done agricultural bylaws. I've done town center bylaws. It really, again, comes down to the community. I wish I could answer that better for you.
Okay.
Well, realistically, the amount of stuff that we still have to do for either one of these at the rate we're going, I hate to totally say this because I'm the first one that says I want them both done this June. I can't even see us getting our shit together for next June. Okay. I'm like, this is going like, we haven't, no offense, I'm not saying anyone's doing anything wrong. We're all plugging away at this. I'm not saying anyone's not doing anything. That's not what I'm saying, but I'm saying we haven't gotten anywhere in a month other than we came up with some questions. We still don't have the survey. We still don't have the pictures picked out. We haven't gotten anywhere. So this one's not going to hit for June for sure. And
well, that's not
yeah,
correct.
And I'd love to give you an update. I have a PowerPoint presentation that's 10 minutes of discussion to kind of show you where we're at. There's been a lot of work done. There's been analysis of all your studies, bylaws, surveys. I've looked at 10 neighboring communities. I've looked at all your zoning, the build out analysis. I've put together a draft visual preference survey that I've used successfully in other communities. And I mean, a lot of work has been done. I think early on we had to figure out whether it was the planning board or the EDC that was going to spearhead this. So really the next steps are to finalize the visual preference survey to get a feel of what people are open to and to launch that. But I mean, I've been waiting 2 months for the assessors finally gave me information, all the parcel data downtown. And I think it would, and we have a map for the board to review and start looking at parcel data. I think it would also be really helpful to do a walking tour. The EDC members, have you ever walked? And maybe you're already familiar with it, but have you walked through the town center and looked at each parcel, looking at a map to really understand each parcel, one by one, and are there expansion opportunities? So, my PowerPoint really was to talk to you about, because like you said, not everyone knows what a mixed use overlay is, to kind of just educate also what design guidelines are. But again, it's not something that you can do overnight either. I did the Bolton one when I was the town planner in the town of Bolton for 6 years. We first passed design guidelines, and then second, we passed a mixed use overlay. So often things do not happen overnight. It can take, time to work on them, but we've already started a lot of that work has been done behind the scenes.
Yeah. And I know that, and I tried to share that in our last email that I sent out, informing everyone about the pictures and not moving ahead with them, that you had that covered. I think, you and I clearly talk more than any of the other members that, you might or might not speak with. So I was, I thought by this
survey out and to get all that stuff out, I can't, and to still have, the open meetings and stuff like that. There's no way we're hitting June. We're not going to get done before April 11th. There's no way. And I'm not trying to poo-poo this. If we can do it, let's go for it. But I'm being realistic. I'm trying to You know what I mean? Like, it's past that point. I hate to say it.
Can I raise a question with Jennifer here? Which is one thing, the next thing on the planning board agenda, kind of, but it's a group thing, is the implementation chapter for the master plan.
Mm-hmm.
That's grant funded and that's coming up. And Jennifer, are you part of that?
Jonathan's done that, is working, spearheading that. I've done a lot of the background work, especially when we did the survey back in June that covered all of the different chapters of the master plan. So Jonathan's the one that's kind of spearheading the implementation chapter.
Because the implementation chapter would have as primary goals as agricultural accessory use, right? And the town overlay. They would be two of the things that you'd most want to implement most, you know, efficiently soon, right?
Yeah.
So maybe if we ran those three initiatives together, so people could come and look at all of, you know, the public part of it and link them that way, right? Mm-hmm. We could make a case for having our fall town meeting, which would be a special meeting where you wouldn't generally do zoning, but because this is so zoning laden, you can make the argument that a special meeting would be appropriate. This is very important, right? Mm-hmm. We don't want to be behind the fire department and the, you know, and maybe set a realistic goal of having a special town meeting in the fall that addresses all three of those issues.
Yeah, that's definitely a possibility. How far along, I mean, and who is working on the accessory farm bylaw?
Oh, that's what we were all talking about before you got here.
Okay, that's EDC.
A thumbnail sketch was we put together, and we were going to ask you too how to do this. But the idea was you had one or two people from the planning board, one or two people from the EDC, and one or two people from the agricultural commission in town work as a working group to try to focus on what people really want and come up with, you know, some alternatives and some thoughts on it.
And what would be the legality? I think that was our primary question as well. Is a subcommittee legality in this case? Am I right, Christopher? Is that how you kind of phrased it?
Yeah, my comment was that we had to research how to actually put together that committee and whether or not it was going to have what the public meeting requirements and stuff like that were going to be, whether it was a working committee, advisory group, or subcommittee, and how we had to actually organize it from a procedural standpoint.
My understanding, I'm not an attorney, but any subcommittees that I've worked with before, you still have to follow the public process. So you still have to post agendas, you have to keep minutes, subcommittees, working committees are all the same, considered the same.
Yeah, which I believe means we would have to ask the select board to create it.
Most likely.
Because the select board's the appointing authority for the town.
Okay.
Well, we have a meeting on Monday and tomorrow is Thursday, so I can still get it added to the agenda if that's the route this group wants to go.
Katie, could you do it where, you know, I'd have to take a vote of all our membership is here, but to create, you wouldn't have to have specific names to be on it, but you to say create an ad hoc subcommittee of 6 consisting of 2, and 2 from each of the boards to try to serve as an advisory board for the for accessory farm use bylaw.
Okay, accessory ad hoc. Hold on, I can only type so fast.
Ad hoc committee.
I'm writing it too.
No, what I was trying. There's a couple of questions in there, so you wouldn't necessarily if we create this committee, that doesn't the select board also have to appoint the individuals? They do, don't they? Because there's no vote on them.
With the ARPA, we asked for 2 select board, 1 planning, right? And 1 finance. We just gave a number for each committee.
For each board. And then you let the chairman appoint the member. That's right, because I appointed Christopher. So, all right. So why, I don't know. I mean, if my co-chair there, Whitney, you want to see if the two boards together, we can get a majority of people to ask the select board to vote, to ask the select board to appoint an ad hoc committee to study the accessory use bylaw and advise the boards, the three boards involved, consisting
yes, please.
of,
yes,
consisting of 1 or 2 members from each board.
okay,
And the boards would be the planning board, the economic development committee, and the
agricultural
commission. I think maybe 1 member might be better from each. I don't know. Is a committee of 3 better, a committee of 6 better? What do people think?
I think if I may, I think a little bit more might be better. Just because I think there's going to be a decent amount of homework the first couple months, and being able to share that a little bit more would be nice.
Exactly.
Yes. And another thing to think about, I would definitely like to be on this committee. I sit on both the EDC and the planning board. How would we want to address that?
I think you can wear a lot of hats, can't you? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, but.
Well, how many of the planning board members actually want to attend, and how many of the EDC actually want to attend? Because I would like to throw my hat in the ring if no one else wants to do it.
Well, I definitely want to do it.
I don't know how
they want to be on the committee. Absolutely.
So,
I don't want to, like, fight people over it, though. You know, I don't want to create a rift in our.
Can I just say one thing? I think even if you're on 2 committees, it just depends on what seat you fill. I've had boards that have been on housing, planning, and EDC, and they're just sitting in the planning board seat, but they bring that back. They bring that expertise from all 3 boards. So
Katie, you're on the EDC, right? Are you a member?
Yep.
Are you? Okay.
I'm a member as well. I'm just like Chris is. But the other thing is, if you want a select board member, then I could definitely fill that spot.
And that might be a really good idea, as having a board of selectmen member too. Getting all the big boards.
But we only need 1 select person. We don't need 2, do we? I mean, you're talking about going from a committee of 6, which gets big, to a committee of 8, which gets really big.
Well, yeah, you just have 1. Trust me.
Yeah, if you say 1 to 2 members for each, with a max total of whatever you want, 5 members, because you have your quorum too.
Okay, so 2 members each.
Madam Chair?
I don't know. Somebody else make the motion.
But Francois had a question.
A quick question. I thought that we had mentioned earlier that we would also be considering individuals who are interested parties, such as farmers or other individuals. Would those count towards this?
That's right. I was just going to ask that. Exactly.
So if we're doing that, I think we're opening up the door to, I mean, what we're trying to really bring to the table here is a knowledge base and a diversity base. So if we're talking about 6 individuals, I think if we open it up also maybe to have 2 individuals who are from the community, who are members members of not only the community, but are also farmers or have a special interest in this here, that would open it up too. And we do have, let's say, for example, for the CIPC, we have members from the various different boards, but we also have members who are basically members from society who contribute significantly. That's why I'm bringing this up. I think that might be a very good alternative to also look at it. How do we fill this committee up?
Okay. So if we chose 1, and that's, and I agree 100%, I had a notation here 6+ because 6 committee members, and then I absolutely wanted to involve what we call stakeholders, farmers, like that. If we had 1 select person, 1 EDC, 1 planning, and 1 ag commission, that would leave 2 spots. I mean, is there, Jennifer, a limit to how, I mean, you know, we don't want to have 12 necessarily, but if we needed to go to 7, is that a possibility? Is there a limit to the
there's never a limit. My first EDC committee in Bolton was 13 members, and it was a lot. Okay. It's a lot, but we had a lot of interest. So I think the smaller, 5 to 7 is a good number to manage. And I think also what Francois said, bringing in, residents that have, the stakeholder having a farmer or something like that brings buy-in to your warrant article, to the bylaw that you're working on, and you're tapping into their expertise. So I think, you can have committees as big as you want. They're just hard to manage, and you have to get the quorum. So usually 5 to 7 is a manageable number, but I've seen them higher.
But the Agricultural Commission should bring in the farming perspective, I would think.
Yeah, they're all.
Oh yeah, I'll ask Allison. She's 3 doors down from me, and I talk to her. Yeah, I talk to her pretty much daily. So I'll talk to her about her involvement, or volunteering for it. And is there anyone, Peter or Denise? Do either of you have an interest in being on this committee?
I don't care. I'm already on 2 committees. What's another one? I'm right with Christopher. I'm stretched thin, but it doesn't matter. I have no life. I'm retired.
I'm going to pass because I want to make sure that I'm still doing what I'm doing on the habitat. So I don't want to have too many conflicting stuff going on.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's, right now we're looking at 5 between the EDC, Select Board, Planning, and Ag Commission. I think that's a good number. Do we need to verify whether Katie can represent the Select Board? Jennifer, do you know about that?
I'm sorry, what was your question?
Would there be any, pushback on having a member from the Select Board as part of this committee, to your knowledge or experience?
No, I've had selectmen on the committee. And again, I think it's always beneficial having a board of selectmen, someone from planning, EDC, and in this case, definitely agriculture. So yeah. Yep.
There is one interesting wrinkle. So I would probably look towards the planning board seat. I would obviously leave the planning board to make that decision. Katie would be looking towards the select board seat, and then somebody else would be looking for the EDC seat, which would constitute a quorum every single time there was a meeting of the committee of the EDC. So it would end up having to be have to be publicly posted and all that stuff anyways. So as an EDC meeting, in addition to being a subcommittee meeting. But that's not that big of a deal. It's just a quirk of it. And the other thought was, if there was a seat or 2 left open for community members, if there was somebody on another one of the boards that felt really passionate about it, they could potentially take a community seat and not have to take the board seat. They could also be joining as a community member.
Let us also not forget, if I may interrupt here for a second, I'm assuming these are open meetings and members can actually participate this way. Individuals can actually come. We have that very simple case in our planning board. We have an individual who always comes to our meetings. Happens to be a gentleman who also works very closely with the planning board, Bill Murray, as an example, and he does contribute significantly to our, to the planning board. So I'm thinking that any interested person who has an opinion and a very strong one would also be able to participate and provide some very good insights during those meetings. Anyway.
Yep.
Agreed.
Okay. So would that person, perhaps that person be under the title of, let's say, stakeholder?
I'm just saying is they don't have to have an official title. These are individuals. You have open meetings, right? These are not going to be closed meetings.
Well,
and so as a result,
I think that's what, if we're going this route, we're going to have open meetings. I think that's what
my
Mr.
point
was pointing out to us.
Yeah, what my point though is that even if you are filled with, say, for example, 5 or 6 members, and you have somebody who truly has a very strong interest in this here, they are always open to be be a participant in this meeting by virtue of the fact that they can join this open meeting.
Good point. Good point. So I think actually, to Francois's point, it probably is a really good idea to have these as open meetings. I think the more information that we questions and opinions from other people would be helpful, and also the more people involved, the more the information about it is shared. So I'm certainly all for the open meetings. It's scheduling them and making sure everybody's there. That's the only caveat. But yeah, I think it's a good idea to include. Personally, I think it's a good idea to include anyone's input as we go into discussions about this.
All right. So just to get clear, I want to make sure I have my count right, so that way I can get this put on for the Board of Selectmen for Monday. So we have 1 select board member, 1 agriculture commission person, 1 planning board person, 1 EDC person, and the 5th is a member of the community, correct? Or
no, we had 2 EDC people, and the 2 EDC, and the 6th would be a farmer or member of the community. We have Peter and myself.
Okay, so
and that includes everybody, because Denise did say she was what?
Nope. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. Yep. 6. Okay.
I mean, does there have to be a limit? I
No.
mean, if we have more than one outside person, non-committee member that wants to get on, why not let them on?
Yeah.
Well, because then your quorum.
And again, I mean, it doesn't mean that they cannot participate. Again, because this is an open meeting, they can participate. And it's dependent more than anything on how do you manage the meetings themselves. Meaning, like if you if you preclude any outside person to open a discussion point during your meeting, versus having truly open discussion and letting those outside members be active participants, right?
Right.
Can I raise a question here? Were you thinking of the 2 EDC members being you and Christopher? Because I'd be very happy to have Christopher be the planning board member. And that eliminates.
Planning board no, he is the planning board member. I'm talking about Peter Walker and myself.
Yeah, we don't need 3 then. I can back. I'll back out. I'm good.
The 2 EDC members, Alice, were myself, Whitney, and Peter Walker. And Christopher was going to be on the role of planning board.
Okay, but so you want it to be 2 EDC members, but only 1 planning board member? My point is you're trying to balance it. It's the planning board that has to ultimately shepherd this through, right? So
okay,
I would either have 2 planning board members and 2 EDC members, or 1 of each, but Christopher could be the planning board member if you do just 1.
Okay.
Can I just, I just want to say one thing. You might want to do odd numbers. Usually you do. So 5, 7.
Well, this would be select board. If you did 1 of each, it would be select board, planning board, EDC, the agricultural commission, and a member of the public, which would be 5.
Sounds good.
Yeah, it would be an odd number for each committee, and then an odd number, of the number 1, plus an odd number for the community, and that would be a total of an odd number of 5.
Yeah, or you could do, I mean, if you really wanted, like 1 board of selectmen, 2 planning, 2 EDC, 1 ag, 1 farmer, open seat. Or you could always say 1 to 2 of each. So that way, if
well, can we get a second person from the planning board to commit?
I doubt it.
Okay, so there's
I'm just being, I don't know, maybe Francois would be willing if they're going to be virtual, but I don't. I'm not. I'm just really up to here with stuff as the chair. And I know that John, my other members just have a hard time making to the regular meetings sometimes because they're really busy. I don't know.
I'd say one from each board is good. And Whitney, I'll back out.
Okay. Okay.
Looks like
you remember the planning board is also the Affordable Housing Committee, you know, so we really, we have a lot of hats and people, you know, Francois is also very busy on a couple of committees, so.
Okay.
I think we have a general consensus at 5. I think we need to hurry up and take the vote while we got it.
Okay. And what's on the mission? To develop a framework for an agricultural accessory use bylaw. Framework looks squishy enough where it would be both terms and process. All right, I'll make a motion.
I'm sorry.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
So Whitney, were you going to call a vote?
Aye. What's that?
Oh, you have to call the vote, Whitney.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'd like to call the vote.
And you have to vote by name if it's virtual.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Denise Kemet.
You're mute.
There you go.
What am I?
Voting on the on whether or not we're going to recommend that the select board establish that committee.
Right. I'm taking the notes, but I heard my name, so I didn't know what.
So we're voting on that. Do you vote? Want to vote?
Sure.
You have to vote? Yeah.
Sure. Okay. I'm voting.
Denise Kemet, aye. You had to put your name on the record. Yes. Okay.
All right. I'm putting my name on the record.
Peter Walker.
It's hard to do this. It's hard to do this and type at the same time.
Aye.
I know.
Peter Walker votes aye.
Christopher Monroe.
Monroe, aye.
Katie Young.
Katie, aye.
Okay, I'll take the planning board vote. Lived all aye.
Aye.
Monroe, aye.
Councilor Steiger, yes.
That's my group.
Okay, so I'll get it thrown on the agenda for, I'll talk to Tony tomorrow to get it put on the agenda and for Monday.
Thanks, Katie.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you, everybody, for grinding it out. This is something that's been pretty important to me to try to get everybody together to talk about. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Christopher, remind me to appoint you tomorrow.
I imagine so.
Under new business, okay.
Alice, I'm actually having MRPC staff meeting tomorrow, land use, so I can talk to Jonathan about the idea that you brought up, or just what his next steps are with the implementation, to see if that public participation can be included with the town center and the ag.
Yeah, and then you could weigh in with pretty much that date is really relevant to all of it, so.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And just, you know, we working with the planning board on the land use chapter. I mean, we did that survey, which I was including tonight, you know, with the results, the desire to for the town center, as well as other uses, but I wasn't talking about other uses tonight, just to focus on the town center.
Yeah, well, I think it'd be great because it would also show that we put this huge effort into a master plan and we're actually, this is its spin-off, it's actually happening in real time, which would be great.
Yep.
So, all right, do you need the planning board for anything else, Whitney?
No, we don't. Does any of our members have any more questions for Alice or our planning board committee?
Hearing none, I'll take a motion to adjourn the planning board.
Madam Chair, this is Councilor Steiger. I would like to call a motion for adjournment of the planning board.
Okay.
And Christopher Monroe, second.
Okay, all in favor, lived all aye.
Steiger, aye.
Monroe, aye.
Thanks for inviting us. Appreciate
Thanks
it.
for inviting us. Yes.
Thank
Thanks,
you very
Katie.
much. Thank you. We appreciate you all.
You have a
Great.
good evening. Stay safe.
Good night.
Good evening. You as well. Stay safe, everyone. Yeah.
Good night.
Sure. Okay. All right. Well, good. We made some headway there. That's terrific. That's great.
About
Boy.
time.
Do we now? Here's a question. Do we just continue with the next meeting? Do we have to reopen the meeting? I think just continue with it. We just adjourned
Yes.
the joint meeting.
Nope.
We continue with our regular meeting?
Procedurally, just the planning board adjourned. The EDC never stopped being in session.
Okay. Okay, terrific. So welcome, Jennifer. Thank you for being here. As our committee knows, I sent out an email the other day letting everyone know that you were here and telling them to take this opportunity to field any questions to you. When you and I talked about it, I said, let's just call it, Commercial Overlay District 101, okay? A little bit of starting from the beginning, if you will, about the process, which you sent us a lot of. He's on the streaming. You sent us a lot of information about timeframes and that kind of thing. But I think that probably we have a couple of questions regarding the overlay itself, these two parcels that had been spoken about, as opposed to extending that overlay district on both ends of 68 and things like that.
Okay.
So if you want to take a couple of minutes and talk about some basics, including the survey, the photos, and where we are with that, and then we can have the committee ask any questions that they might have come up with.
Yep. Can I share my screen? Is that possible?
I think Christopher can do that with you.
Yes.
I think
I have to make you a host.
Yeah, you host to say, yeah, you have to allow me to. And I'm just going to quickly, first of all, want to just get everyone on the same page. So I'm going to just talk about the basis of where we are and the process.
Yep.
Okay, so let's see if I can, oh, yes, okay. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so let me just, I'm trying to get the viewpoint.
Pardon me.
Oh, here we go. All right, so just quickly, as you know, MRPC is assisting Hubbardston with creating a town center overlay district bylaw. That's exactly what the scope identifies. As you also know, the majority of the town is zoned residential and agriculture, has a very small town center, which is here in red. And then you have the other commercial district here and here. Current zoning results in very low density commercial development pattern. This is the 2016 survey that was done, just saying that residents, I don't want to read it word for word, but they just desire a walkable, vibrant town center with a range of services, beautification, while maintaining or retaining the rest of the historic community. I talked about, we did a master plan study in June. The town center was listed as a top priority for the town while also preserving its farm character. There was a preference for the town center footprint to expand to accommodate commercial and job growth. And then some of the uses are identical to the survey that was done in 2016. Just quickly, zoning 101, so everyone knows what these terms mean. Smart growth principles, you can see the two circles at the town center here. The first one's a 5-minute walk, the second is a 10-minute walk. It really is a way of concentrating growth and development that's compact, walkable, bike-friendly, offers housing choices, mixed-use development while preserving the open space farmland in critical areas. So not looking to rezone the entire town, which is 2-acre zoning, is just concentrating it in a one or desired areas, I should say. What is an overlay? So overlays are confusing. Maybe you're familiar with it, so I apologize. I just want to try to go back to the basics so everyone knows what it means. It is a tool that creates a special zoning district over an existing base zone. So often communities can just change their existing base zone. But as an overlay district, actually, if you picture it, just floats over your existing base zone, and it can cut other boundaries. So for example, if you did the town center, you create a mixed use overlay over that, but you want to have portions of the adjacent residential district. Maybe there's a couple parcels that you think should be included. It can cut across other zoning areas. So it's just another tool. There's regulations and incentives that are attached to the overlay district within whatever special area you're identifying. And there's different ways you can use the overlay. So you can encourage, development densities, or certain uses, or controlling appearances. And then, a couple of things you would look at is what would be the town center purpose for Hubbardston? Is it to develop the town center, to encourage development in the town center? What is that area going to be? Is it just going to be right over the existing town center, or are we going to be expanding that to include other parcels or other areas in town? And we're gonna figure that out as we go through this process. And then we're going to develop special rules that apply to that district. Now, often what communities also develop, and you don't have to, but we have, because developing design guidelines and or standards. So design guidelines are advisory. They set a design perimeter to encourage projects that are consistent with whatever the town's goals are. So it really is putting it out there. Look, if you want to do development or infill or redevelopment, the project's got to look like this. And a town can be very specific, or it can be not specific. Not so specific. And then design standards are mandatory. So for example, say that you're doing a project in the town center and you're requiring that, they include some public space, or they, have to have bike racks. You don't have to get down to it has to look like this color, it has to have this type of window. I mean, it can, and we'll explore that as we're looking at other design guidelines. I did them in Bolton. I did them in Lincoln, although they haven't been adopted yet. They were just draft, but we'll look at those. Westminster, some of the communities I've looked at have some design elements within their bylaw, and I'll share that with you, but not tonight. I'm just kind of giving you a quick overview. These are all the tasks that we're going to be doing as we're, this is the scope of work. So we have, 8 tasks with meetings. The first one was just meeting with the group, which we did back early fall. Task 2 is reviewing, all the studies that have been out there, studies, surveys, plans. That's all been done. The only thing I was really waiting for was the assessor's data, which I just received. So then the third one is developing a visual preference survey. So a visual preference survey is a survey. It's just adding photos and asking people really with their, gut reaction, do you like A, B, C, D, E? So you're showing them different style buildings, different style, different uses, but it's visual. The fourth task is developing a survey for local businesses to get their feedback. Like, what is preventing you? You know, how is the zoning and the bylaws preventing you from what you want to be able to do? It's really important to talk to the businesses and get their feedback. Task 5 would be developing a bylaw, a very draft bylaw, and 6 would be the public engagement piece of it. And you can actually put the public engagement piece before the draft bylaw, or we may end up having two, you know, first having the public engagement, then developing draft zoning, and then having another public engagement meeting after that, and then revising it. And then just quickly, I mentioned we reviewed all the studies, plans, and surveys. Currently going to be looking at the assessor's data specific to the town center. I've reviewed over 10 communities, peers and benchmark communities. What can we learn from those communities? And I will share that with you. Again, not tonight, but very eye-opening. And there's things that we can learn from those communities. And one thing I do want to say, and I said this to Whitney, you know, often when communities are changing their zoning, you may not see projects done, because when you change zoning, for example, I did Bolton's back in 2011, 2012. You may not see things for 10, 15, 20 years out because that's how long projects can take. Sometimes you see them right away, but and also you could go in and look at zoning and say, wow, I really like that building. And as I explained to Whitney, well, that building may have predated zoning. So it could be an old historic building that one time, you know, the doctor had his business, or the shopkeeper had their business on the first floor and lived on the second floor. Well, when zoning came along, it created and separated all these uses. So often you look at those buildings and they can't be done under current zoning. They're pre-existing. And then the next thing is looking at Hubbardston's existing uses to see if there's uses that are desired that are currently not allowed, and also uses that may not be desired. I know when we looked at Lincoln's, there were a few uses that the town no longer wanted in the town center. You know, it made sense 50 years ago, but it no longer made sense to have a landscaping business smack dab in the town center where you wanted coffee shops, etc. And then it's exploring redevelopment and infill opportunities and expansion on existing properties as we look at build out analysis. And then I mentioned earlier is I think it'd be really important as a group to have the EDC go out and do a walking tour, and I'd love to participate in that. And we can, you know, separate 6 feet, wear masks and be safe. But I find it so important to walk out together as a group, and anyone else that wants to join. It can be very eye-opening. And so next steps are, you know, also the public engagement, the visual preference survey, the business survey. And that's basically it. I won't go on anymore. I just wanted to give you a quick overview. So with that, any, you know, questions, feedback, would be helpful. So,
okay, well, Jennifer, thank you for that. I found it very helpful. I think one of the things that you could tell by some of the questions that were brought in, and it was, and Katie sent these questions in, and I appreciate everyone who sent their questions in, was talking about expanding the commercial overlay district to include points on 68, both north and south. Correct, Katie? and up to specific points of which she gave options. Do you want it to go this far, that far, whatever? We want to understand that would be a possibility in this bylaw, right? To expand in that way.
Yes. Yep, we definitely, okay. And that's what's good about a mixed use overlay. I mentioned you can expand over other districts or create multiple overlay districts. And we'll look at that in some of the communities as the case studies when I share that information. And there's, you know, a few communities that are probably not on your radar screen that I included to look at that have done some creative zoning.
Okay, because I think that a couple of folks had gotten a little bit hung up when Christopher had mentioned, I believe it was Christopher, and doesn't matter, but about only 2 parcels of land. Was that, had you brought that up at one of our meetings, Christopher?
Yeah, that was something that came up as a discussion at the planning board when we first looked at the original proposal.
Okay.
That it might have been a limited number of parcels that are actually affected by it because of where the commercial zone already is, unless we were to be looking at pushing southward.
Okay.
And Chris, when you, and I can, well, I was going to bring up another map, but that's fine. I also, we created a map that looks at each individual property down at the town center and some of the surrounding area. So when you, can you elaborate when you say only 2 parcels? You mean only 2 parcels that can be further built on, or only 2 other parcels that could be included? That you're thinking that could be included?
Yeah, in terms of new parcels, but it's been a while since I looked at it. Those.
Oh, sure. Cells. And do you think it's 2 parcels that are currently not zoned commercial that are in another, like the residential district? Or do you think that's within? And if you don't know it off the top of your head,
yeah, I don't.
We have plenty of time where we'll be looking at that. Okay.
Oh, Jennifer, you said you have another map that shows who owns the parcels.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't go, and it's just a very generic map where it just shows the properties. It's not listed, so it doesn't have the property ID or the names of them. It's just showing the town center district with the buildings. So it might be helpful to actually put labels on them if not everyone's familiar with that, but I can send that map out to everyone as is for now. If that would be helpful.
Landlocked parcels in that center district? I couldn't really tell, but there were some parcels that I was wondering if they're Katie, you might know. There's some landlocked parcels back there in that center district.
There probably very well could be either that or could be owned by one of the adjacent.
Right, like the existing owner, and it's a piece of the, only because I think it's important for the expansion to make sure that, you know, if there are landlocked parcels, they could be included in that because, you know, that would be really helpful.
Absolutely. And that's really good, Denise, that you brought that up, because that's one thing that when you're looking at it, can parcels be assembled for expansion? And we had that in Lincoln, for example. There were a couple underdeveloped properties that could be assembled if that made sense to allow further expansion or a bigger project. So we'll look at those individually. We haven't analyzed it yet, but it'll be really helpful for the EDC to look at this map as well. I wish we were in person so you could put the map on the table and you're just marking it up. So I have to find another way where we can do that remotely and be able to, there's so many different tools that you can do now, and it can be marked up that way.
Okay, good. Katie, to your questions about, you know, expansion, do you have, and, you know, and definitely doesn't have to be precise, but can you tell me what perhaps some of the mileage is between some of those distances from where it ends now to say the farthest point?
Well,
on either end.
From the commercial, where? From the town center or from the commercial district as it stands now?
From the commercial, yeah, from the district as it stands now, because we're going to expand from that point.
Yeah, the commercial district ends at about Gardner Road cutoff, a little bit before that, I believe, or right around the first part of it, headed on the side. So if you go there to the next point, that, you know, like I put different points on there. What did I put? Dogwood North, and then Dogwood South, Dogwood North. Did I put Plum Tree on there? I don't even remember. And then, of course, there's the intersection of Pitcherville and Morgan, and then right down to 68. But the whole thing.
So let's say to the farthest point, what would the mileage be?
Town line's only a couple miles.
And here's the other, you know, the other thing, as you look at some communities, you can have different mixed use overlay districts if you didn't want to expand everything in between, you know, it doesn't have to, so you could have, for example, I think it's Warner, New Hampshire, which has 2 or 3 mixed use overlays. So they have, you know, the town center one, but then they have the one district as you're arriving into the town center, and that allows different uses than the town center one. So it might be something that as we explore it, is the EDC going to recommend the same exact uses? Or looking at connecting the town center all the way down? Or is it going to jump over?
Jump over, right.
Okay, so in other words,
any pros or cons to doing that?
Well, it's just if there's different uses or different densities, you would want to create then a different mixed use overlay.
Okay.
Yeah, like think about.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That's okay. It's hard when we're on Zoom because then we start talking, you know. But think about like the 68 and 62, and then which is a little commercial blob, but also then think about the corners of Morgan and Pitcherville, where there's that building that isn't in commercial, but it's a commercial building, and the same with like Tiny Toes and Little Bows. You know, when you get down to the Gardner Line area, Rieta Ranch, stuff like that, that whole, basically from Morgan Road, Pitcherville down to 68, to the Gardner Line, has some opportunities more, I would say more opportunities for commercial than the dead zone in between like Dogwood South and the Gardner Road cutoff. You know, like that's, like, although there is that garage in the center, but you know what I mean? Like there's more buildings that could be commercial use. People have big, huge, like that monster garage with all the cars that aren't supposed to be there, you know, things like that. Well, we all know what we're talking about.
Let me give you an example of Bolton. So when we worked on that, you had, you know, a limited business district, and you have a residential business district, and then you had like a some pre-existing uses down in another area. But the town ended up not doing all of the business uses. It just concentrated at around the 495, 117 interchange and down to some of the businesses along 117, not all of them. So it created a mixed use overlay just in that area. Not every business in every town. And as I think what will be really helpful is when we look at the case studies from the other communities to see what they've done. Because I've actually taken some snapshots to show their zoning. So you can see, okay, here's the town center, and they have like 3 different zones or overlays, and then they have something down the road that they've created as the entrance into the town. But they're all different densities, different uses.
Right. Well, I think one of the things that makes us unique is that probably Bolton and Lincoln and other places along their commercial use routes, let's say, they had pre-existing buildings. Am I correct? Yeah. That makes us a little bit different, doesn't it?
Because go ahead, Whitney.
No, I'm just saying it just kind of makes it different, from this perspective. That we're not dealing with structures and that kind of thing. We're talking about mostly land and the possibilities that can go in there. But it definitely is a difference between us and other towns.
Yep, every town's definitely unique, and that's why it's good to look at case studies that will be looking at some of these other communities, because it'll be what can we learn and what can we learn that we don't like and what can we learn that we do like. So it's going in and picking things that you like. But I just wanted to be clear that you don't have to zone everything in between. So it can be this area and that area. And that's what's great about a mixed use overlay.
Yeah, that's pretty great, actually. So we really need to look at those maps. We need to, walk it, tour it, whatever, and define those things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm good for a walk.
As long as it's sure.
Yeah. As long as it's -2 out, I'm good.
Oh, good. Yeah, I think the walks are really, really helpful. I think starting in Hubbardston, with the map and walking around and really understanding that. And, if there's landlocked parcels, that type of thing, it's putting your boots on the ground really makes a difference rather than just, and it'd be helpful to me as well. So.
Okay. Well, it sounds like we're all in. That's great. Any other questions about that from anyone? Any comments or anything?
Yeah, let's schedule it.
Okay. One of the things that I'm sorry, go ahead, Peter, go ahead.
I said, let's schedule it. And if it's too cold, we'll just do it another day.
Yeah.
Well, we can do that.
I had a question too. And really, I guess it's kind of a question and a concern. When was it when the commercial zoning district was shrunk? Does anybody know what year that was? Looking mostly at Katie.
For the year, but it expanded one year, and like the next year they shrunk it all back. It was 1 year.
Yeah, it wasn't a long time ago in the grand scheme of things.
No.
And that's probably going to be a historical footnote that's worth looking at when going through and thinking about this.
Do we know why? Was there outcry about it? Why was it reverted? Is there
I got a few people I can ask. I can't remember off the top. This was I'm
so curious about that.
It was either I was like too young and didn't care at that point, or I had small children and couldn't even wrap my head around anything out of the house.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, there was a pretty.
I'd be curious about that, and that could definitely give us a little bit of insight on how to approach our residents. If it was due to an outcry or pushback or whatever, we can try and avoid those same pitfalls. Let's say, if possible.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like to me there might have been a interest from a big box store or something, and people got nervous and voiced their opinion.
Well, let me tell you, there was a year that the asphalt plants, and this wasn't even very long ago, wanted to set up shop in the Pitcherville sand pits, and everybody came out for that one. And then when it did, they wanted to basically turn this whole town into a airport that would have made Devon's, the Devon's Air Force Base look like nothing. It was going to take over the whole town came out on that too. Oh, hell no. So Hubbardston, we like the space, we like the quiet, we like the farms, but we still want our shops. And, so there's got to be we got to figure out that line there. We have to figure out the line, because people want their coffee and they want a bistro and they want this, that, and the other, but yet we have to do something, because there's just not going to work with what we got going on. So
yeah, and I have to say, creating design guidelines, standards, and really have been helpful, because it really can control what gets built. I mean, you can't prevent a chain from coming in, but you can, through design guidelines or standards, require they look a certain way. Their signage, their color, their appearance, whether you want to drive through or not, all of those things. That's why it's so important to have that part.
We already have non-drive-through bylaw, so that kind of screws us a whole bunch of, like, that shuts down a lot of stuff that people are worried about. And then the lack of sewer water shuts down the whole big box and large, chain restaurant, let alone lack of people. So a lot of that stuff, I know everyone's worried about it, but it's like
it's shut down, right?
It's already shut down. There's no way that's happening without like a major population changes. There's just, and some major infrastructure changes.
Yeah. And I bring up just because there's a lot of story in some of those footnotes. Like, just listening to Katie talk, I was unaware of what went on with the airfield. But when you look at the zoning regulations and you look at the footnotes, amended 62491, commercial airfield deleted. Like, well, there was probably a connection there.
Yeah.
and the story's definitely in there. So I just want to make sure that that context is kind of taken, because there was a deliberate effort to shrink down the zoning, and it vastly predated my time on the planning board. I've only been on it a year and 3 months, so I don't know the history of that, and none of the current members on it have been around multiple terms. I don't believe. Maybe Bill Holman. But there's nobody who's been on it like 10 years to tell you the history. So, but there definitely is some there.
Christopher, how long ago do you think that was? And is that noted in the zoning? I feel like I've read something.
Yeah, I don't know when the change was to shrink the zone.
But it probably was in reaction to something.
Yeah.
So that'll be really important to see what they were expanding and where. And
I'll ask my aunt.
So that's great.
So, and then if like my Aunt Barbara and stuff can't remember, which I would bet money Barbara will know. I do know a lot of townie folk that will 2 cents to me on that one.
Yeah, that's
a lot
great.
of those old planning board members, they're still kicking around town too, so we could always reach out.
That's great. That's really good.
Go to the diner.
Yeah.
Right.
So do you want to try to schedule a walk then?
Yep.
Want to do that now while we have everyone here?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Sure.
What's best for people? Weekdays, morning, weekends, nights?
Well, there's no street lights, so I would recommend daylight.
Yeah.
Yep. I meant late afternoon.
Oh. Okay.
Late afternoon's probably not good with school pickup. That place is a zoo.
All right. Can everyone do mornings?
Yeah, I kind of think like mid-morning would be a good idea after the school bus and all that. Mid-morning. Yeah. I'll tell you one thing. I mentioned this to Katie not too long ago. I have never seen as much traffic coming through town as I have in the last 2 or 3 months. Why are you smiling? Have you noticed it also?
What, for the school pickups? I think it's insane.
Not the school pickup. I mean, no, not the school pickup. I'm talking about 10:30, 11:30 in the morning.
Oh yeah.
It's amazing. And I walk 5 miles every day.
Yeah. Everybody's going back to work. Everybody's going back to work.
Yeah.
Wow.
68
It's,
is
it really, I mean, it's so noticeable. That's how much it seems to have grown, that
Yeah.
it sticks out every time I see it. I think, wow, just cars passing, constantly.
Yeah, I feel like
That's
traffic definitely
natural.
has picked up, and people's patience driving too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
They do about 70
so
through the center.
My
of
thought
town.
is mid-morning would be great. What about anyone else's schedule?
mid-morning sounds lovely.
All right.
Yeah.
And for
Anyone?
me, except Wednesdays. I can't do Wednesday mornings.
But Wednesdays are tough for me too.
Okay, so no Wednesday. Do we want to look at next week? Is that too soon?
Hold on, let me look at the weather.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah, look
We
at
do
the
have
10-day
some coming
weather.
in over the
Yeah.
weekend, but-
Hold on, I'm going to bring it up right now.
Hey, I
Okay.
grew up in Wisconsin. I can handle any weather.
Yeah, me too.
I got snow.
I have
right.
You
snowshoes.
too.
So next week,
Next Wednesday. Yeah.
next week is cold.
On
Sunday,
Wednesday, it says 40% snow and a high of 27.
I don't have that. I got
No one
20.
No one can do Wednesday though.
All right.
Yeah.
So Thursday's going to be 17 during the day.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Tuesday's going to be 32. So
Ooh.
32 is not
There
bad.
you go.
And 17 at night.
32 with, but with 50% snow.
I don't see that. I'm just saying what
I
I'm
did.
looking at.
I got a snowflake
Okay.
on mine.
What are yours? What
What?
does yours have?
No, mine had snowflakes too for Tuesday.
Really?
and Wednesday. Yeah.
Yeah. Friday is sunny and a high of 25.
Yeah, I got 24. That's cool. I mean, Tuesday looks
I
pretty
mean-
good to me, but I can handle snowflakes.
Tuesday, I have 50% snow on Tuesday.
Yeah, but that's it. Okay, so I have on Tuesday the 50% snow, but it's PM.
So that's
Wow.
not, yeah.
Oh,
Tuesday looks good.
and a high of
You want to
30.
go with
Well,
Tuesday and do Friday as a backup?
Let's go with Tuesday.
Remember,
What
it has to be
time?
posted as a
Yeah,
meeting,
Tuesday.
so
Oh.
we need them to post it tomorrow if we're doing Tuesday.
Oh.
Which
Thank you,
shouldn't be a problem.
Christopher,
We just
for
have to
that.
make sure it gets
Holy
posted.
smoke. Yeah.
Tuesday, the 25th.
Mm-hmm.
I'm down with
Okay.
that.
Okay. Is 10 o'clock a good time? Is that
Yep.
mid-morning?
10:30.
10:30.
10:30.
Okay, and where do you want to
Yeah.
meet?
Coffee
Town
shop.
hall. Either that or the town hall parking lot.
All right, why don't we meet at the town hall parking lot at 10:30?
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
great.
Okay.
I'll bring maps for everyone.
Good. All right. I'll get that posted. Post with Lori tomorrow. Okay. I'll do that tomorrow morning.
And you could
first
just
thing.
say site
Um,
visit, town
great.
center.
Okay, I'm glad. That's going to be important. Great.
Perfect.
I'm sorry, you faded kind of. Say that again, please.
Who?
She said
Oh.
perfect.
Perfect.
Okay. Okay. One thing that I do want to cover, I know that there was a little bit of conversation at our last meeting regarding the photographs that were included in the survey. I've spoken with Jennifer and I sent out an email to our members, but I wanted Jennifer to explain, first of all, she said she'd, possibly try and get some from some of these benchmark towns, but why these photographs are fine being more generic than, including benchmark towns. And I just wanted her to explain that to everybody so they understand, why they were included in the survey.
Yeah, I think it's just they're generic photos to try to get a response. Look at it, a gut reaction. Do you like it? Do you not like it? It's not meant for someone to go out and look at this building. However, we can include some of the photographs, and Whitney and I were talking about one question may be, you know, what do you think of these communities and the photos, and list the actual communities with some of these, you know, specific photos. So we have Ashburnham, Barry, Bolton, Princeton, Rutland, Sterling, Templeton, Westminster, and then the other community that I added in there is Warner, New Hampshire.
Okay.
But I don't know what your thoughts are. I'm open to whatever.
Well, I think the initial reaction was that these photographs don't represent anything in our area, anything in our town. And
Right.
And I wanted everyone to understand why they don't necessarily have to, and why they, you know, would be considered as appropriate for the survey, as opposed to not. And I know, and Katie, you were concerned about the photos. Maybe you can describe that better.
There was a few of them I was super concerned about because they just, what you were trying to convey, I thought the picture didn't quite convey it, and I think that it would totally skew the results, because even though I'm open to that idea and I like that idea, that picture would have made me say no, because that picture was just, I didn't like the setup or whatever. There was a couple of them. I think one was some benches, and some was like, there was like planters, and they happened to be like these concrete industrial looking hideous thing, you know, and it was just
right. And that makes sense.
Yeah.
And you're absolutely right. I mean, I did it when not to bring up Bolton again, but I remember we did a survey and it was a building, and someone fixated on the air conditioner unit and made a comment, I don't like the building because I don't like air conditioners. And it's like, oh, you missed the point. So yes, absolutely. We don't want someone to not like the planter because it's concrete. So if those are, you know, send me that, change this photo, or send me a photo that you think would be better. Absolutely. That would be really, really helpful.
But isn't that the point of these pictures, is to create a reaction?
It is in some of them. So you'll see one of them looks like a very strip mall type of store, or, you know, the parking out in front. It is too. But in case of the planters, you're assuming people would want planters and benches and that type of thing, and maybe not. Maybe the DPW is like, no, I don't want those on the street because it's something they have to take care of.
Because they don't want kids loitering around the town center.
Right. You know, there's always, or, you know, the skateboarder. So
smoking butts.
So definitely, but I don't think it has to be a photo in a community.
Correct.
You know, so definitely send me, Katie, that'd be really helpful. You know, even if you don't have to come up with a photo unless you want to, but just say, hey, can you look for something more natural with wood? Or,
all right, so back and through and be nitpicky and send it to you. Got it.
Yeah, nitpicky's good. Yeah. That's really good. Yeah, we want to put the survey out and get really good, you know, response and information, because it's really going to help guide the design guideline standards as well as the zoning.
I had the same question and concern as Katie. It was really more, for me, it was more about creating unintentional bias. And the planter was the perfect example.
Yeah.
And that was the one we had talked about at the meeting, that generally...
I'm sorry. What was a perfect example? I'm sorry.
The picture of the planter.
Okay.
That generally, I think our constituents would be almost 100% in support of planters, but not that concrete modern art one.
Yeah.
I think that would test super poorly. And it's just because of the example that was picked, I think would lead to an unintentional bias in the question.
Yeah, no, and that's why it's really good that the committee goes through each and, you know, every question, phrase it differently, change the pictures up. That really helpful. And I know that Whitney already shared a lot of the comments, so what's come forward is really helpful.
the questions that folks sent in.
Yes. Yeah. Sorry, I have a bird.
with them.
If you hear my dog barking, it's my annoying border collie right there.
Oh, it's time to go to bathroom.
It is. He
Yeah.
doesn't have a sensitive stomach, and I made the mistake of giving him chicken last night, boneless chicken. So he's, yes.
How are we for questions? Do we need some of those questions to rephrase with some what's the term? You know, choices. In other words, when the questions are asked, should we say? I know some of the questions were kind of open-ended. What do you think about whatever? You know, should it say? You know, would you prefer 2 stories versus 3 stories? Would you prefer, you know, tree line screen between proper, you know, that kind of, do we need to include multiple choice with the questions that we submit?
If you're you know, have a strong recommendation for that, then yes, definitely send along the recommendation.
Okay.
We can easily rephrase it, change it. Yep.
Okay. All right. So I think that, you know, something that everyone can do that'll be helpful, actually, you know, maybe in the next, you know, next week, is to go through that, choose any questions that you feel you want removed, add any ones that you want, and the same thing with the photographs. And if you want to go out and take photographs, you know, that's up to you if you want to, but I'll help you, Jennifer, you know, getting some photographs from some of these different towns' archives. If that'll be helpful, I'm happy to, you know, jump in and try and do that. Okay,
that sounds great. And one thing you might, when you post the agenda, I know you're going to post it for, you know, a site walk or however you're wording. You might want to just add, and, you know, discussion regarding the town center overlay project, so that we can, if things come up about the visual preference and other things, we can discuss that as we're walking around.
So, okay, you're talking about our town walk.
Yeah, town walk.
Okay, plus discussions about.
You could be about the town center project, unless you want to get into specifics, and it's, you know, discussion on visual preference.
Well, here we go again, though, and I laugh about it, calling it the town center project. That's like so confusing to everybody. So, you know, it's the commercial overlay district bylaw. And isn't that what I would put in that posting as well?
I would.
We need to get everybody used to, although the town center is part of this, let's say, there is a separate committee for the town center. So I'm trying to distinguish us, right, Kate, us from them.
They're also doing a lot of meetings and walkings as well to get survey plots, the town center.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And are you talking about the improvements? You're talking about the complete streets improvements?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Correct.
So those words may be very confusing, especially to some of the town center residents who are working.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure that committee does not want to be associated with a mixed use overlay project. They'll have people showing up.
You talk about, and you talk about overlay. There's an overlay in the title of this. Like every time I see it, it's in one form or another. It includes town center in the middle, and I like want to pull my hair out.
So what would the committee, just so we have the proper branding of this and it's consistent on surveys and PowerPoint presentations, do you want it to say commercial
overlay?
Commercial.
I'm gonna tell you how the grant was presented was as a commercial overlay district bylaw.
Okay.
Commercial overlay district bylaw.
district bylaw.
That's what it was titled. That's what Ryan titled it on the application. It's
all right,
I'll
so we will do it.
But I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
We will do it commercial overlay district
Correct.
bylaw.
Yeah.
We have it titled in our scope as the town center
Yeah.
overlay project, but that's fine. I mean, that's
Okay.
just a scope. Town center overlay district bylaw, but we can brand it as the commercial overlay district bylaw. Okay.
Oh.
And then write a goal and mission, and we should probably create a goal or, you know, a mission of that. What, you know, what does that mean in one sentence? You know, to create a walkable, vibrant commercial district. See, I don't want to say town center, so it's coming up with a
To encourage.
Yeah.
Yes. To encourage. Yeah, I had something and it just went away. I'll rethink that. Sorry.
Yeah, think of that. You know, think of that. Send me your thoughts in an email. I mean, I have words I can put together and send that out too to see what your thoughts are. But we probably should have. Oh, go ahead.
To encourage the growth of Hubbardston's commercial district area overlay center, not center. Get rid of center. To encourage the growth of Hubbardston's business.
Wow.
To encourage the growth of small business community.
There you go. Business community. There we go.
Of Hubbardston's business community?
Small business.
Oh. Yep.
Because that's ideally what we're after, is it not?
And it could be like probably better worded, but
okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to
start.
jump in here and tell you that I was incorrect and I apologize. I'm looking at the grant proposal that, and I signed my name to it too. Son of a gun. Okay, that was sent to MRP, and it is the Town Center Overlay District bylaw. That's what it is. Town Center Overlay District bylaw. Okay,
but you know, but the name, you know, the name can change. I mean, it's whatever the branding of this, the marketing of it,
right?
And you know, coming up with the mission statement.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that everyone is saying the same thing and it's promoted that way.
And it's not going to confuse with the town.
Right. That's the most important thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's to create an inviting atmosphere to bolster our agritourism community.
Mm-hmm.
Well, no, I think you're confusing that with the ag accessory.
No, because agritourism is bringing people into the town to spend money.
Agriculture, from an ag, I think that it's broader than that. I mean, I think it needs to. I think that confines it to or restricts it too much.
All right, take out agritourism. Then to create an inviting atmosphere for people to come and spend money, but not in those words.
Right.
Well, I mean, how about things like business growth that attracts, you know, local residents as well as, you know, as visitors?
Yeah, whatever. We can all change the title, but it's all the same thing. It is about
business growth, isn't it? I mean, that's what you're coming and opening a business in the town, in the commercial overlay. So
yeah,
that's what I would think.
Yeah, there's a lot of buzzwords too. The other thing is, you know, to encourage the growth of, but it's also to have the existing businesses be sustainable, successful. Yeah. So I think there's a lot of words
Yeah, I mean, you look at the town center now, it's not very inviting to an outside person. So you're going to want to, you know, increase the growth.
Yep.
All right,
And-
so it could be an expansion of businesses.
I'm writing all these words down as you say them.
Yeah,
Are there
me
any
too.
other buzzwords that you guys like?
Well, I like expansion. I like growth.
Yeah,
Mhm.
expand, growth, community.
Yep. Residents. you said.
Somehow, if there's a way to put existing and new in
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
I would be careful with some of those expansion and growth words. And
How about
use them
enhance?
judiciously.
Enhance.
Okay. And I'm going to put Christopher's.
But I want to hear why Christopher says that, please. What's your concern with that?
Just because whenever you start kind of promoting the idea of growth and change, you encounter resistance. That's the basis of it. And what we're talking about doing here isn't some kind of large change. We're just looking to promote a economically sustainable future that preserves the character of the town.
Yeah.
But yeah, growth is going to be scary. And when you start, just the name of this committee is scary to a percentage of the town.
Yeah.
They think we're gonna have a Dunkin' Donuts on every corner, you know.
Well, I mean, for the all 7 people in town that know what the EDC is, because 99% of them don't.
Peter, can you remember what you just called it a minute ago? Because I really want to.
I'm writing all these. I'm writing these words down too. Another one might be, strengthen the business community.
Yeah, to enhance the current small business community with an outlook for future small business growth. Well, get rid of the growth, but you know what I mean.
Sustainable
small business community.
Yeah.
And we put a million words in there.
Everyone send your narrative in, okay? Or your
buzzwords, yeah.
Or your stuff, yeah. And we'll put something together and we'll pass it around and get everyone's approval.
Keep retweaking it and retweaking it.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Does anyone have any? I do have a question before we. I'll take a motion to adjourn the meeting. What do you think, Jennifer, about our timeline? Katie expressed. I don't know if you were on the meeting at that time, but she had expressed concerns that she didn't think that there was a prayer in heck that we got this through for our 2022. What are your thoughts on it? I mean, I feel like, I'd rather do it one time and have it be a great success than, propose it, kind of halfway or whatever, and have it, returned to be redone. What do you think about our, do we have that prayer in heck to get this done for June? Well, March, April, June. There's 3 dates we have to worry about.
Right. Your meeting is the town meeting is in June.
Well, right. Yeah, slow it. Think about this. This has to be all wrapped tiny little bow by April 11th.
Yeah, no, it is difficult. That's a very difficult timeline. And I think, proceeding forward and saying that we're working on a bylaw for possibly for June or a future town meeting. And that can include, a special town meeting.
Yeah. Well, Alex was talking about kind of wrapping this one the ag accessory or whatever we end up calling that one, and the what's the one?
Oh, the implementation,
yeah.
The master plan. Yep.
Yeah. Try to get that all kind of tidied up all at once together, because that's what Ryan had said originally when I talked to him about this, is one more important than the other. I asked his 2 cents, and he said they kind of coincide together. You really need to present it together, and if you do it correctly, then one helps the other. So I do see Alice's point as well, is to try to get it all kind of wrapped up together. It's the same basically as what Ryan said, and it makes sense. If we could do them for the September, I think we could, because I just don't feel, I mean, I'm all for it. If we can get it done, let's go. But I just don't think we'll get this done, or the ag accessory, by April 11th in a nice little tiny bow, wrapped up and done with all the meetings and surveys.
Right. Yeah.
So.
No, that's a very, very aggressive timeline.
Yeah. And I'm like,
I mean, it just, even for September, I mean, we have to plug ahead. I mean, if you're doing an ag bylaw and a town, and, you know, Whitney, you asked that question before. Yes, they can definitely, you're talking about business in the ag, and you're talking about business in the commercial districts. It would be a nice way to tie them both together. You're supporting the ag businesses and the commercial business.
Should we shoot for both in September? Should we shoot for one in June, one in September? Should we shoot for both of them in the following year? And how long, I mean, certainly your assistance doesn't expires to some degree, but we could use all of that and just present it the following year. Again, I just don't want it to fall or fail, and then it's always better to kind of get through on the first go run of it. So absolutely. I'm just asking for everyone's opinion on our timeline for actually both of them. What your opinions are.
I agree with Katie where I'd love to do it, but I just don't think we have enough manpower. We're down too many people on the committee, and everyone that's involved is also involved in so many other areas doing other things. And I think it has to be done right. So I wouldn't be one to rush it, because we're all volunteer. If we all, if we were paid people doing it, it'd be different. Throw some incentive out there, and everybody, puts everything else aside. But
COVID has also changed things too. COVID has made everything slow down and make it difficult for communities, because you can't get together. And the same thing with the public participation. Although COVID has helped, Zoom to me has allowed people to be able to attend meetings that may not have in the past due to family commitments or work commitments. So it's got its pros and cons.
Okay.
What does everyone else think, though, about the timeline and the bylaws?
I think we can always choose to slow it down and push it back to another meeting. But if we don't start taking steps, we won't have options to make decisions. So I think it is possible. There's a chance. Okay. It's pretty unlikely we're going to get it on June. There's a chance for some of it. It's more likely it happens in a fall meeting, but there's a chance that we start to get close to that and we decide, we're not ready for prime time. And if it's our decision to push it back, we just make that decision in the moment. We don't.
Oh, we don't have
to force it. Absolutely.
Well, yeah, have that option of, like, if we don't feel that we're ready, we can hold it. Not, like, we're still tweaking, and not push that last little push to either June or even if we're at like the September, like we're just not ready. Okay. We with it. We can hold and let it go to the following June and keep tweaking.
Okay. So in other words, we can put it, we can put the draft in, we could put it on the warrant, and then at the last minute say we want to hold. Oh.
A placeholder. Do you accept placeholders?
Yeah.
Right?
A placeholder, but that again, that would be, we have to have it by April 11th in order for it to be on the warrant. And then, like I said, but we can put in a placeholder, but I don't think, again, I wouldn't even worry about a placeholder at this point to even worry about that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? Let's see how far.
Now I'm confused.
No,
if we put it in for on the warrant, and then we say, you know, as the time approaches, we realize that it might not, you know.
No, that's not what I meant. We don't put it on the warrant. We're getting close to the time that we're about to put it on the warrant.
Okay.
We decide the last minute we're not ready.
I see.
It's either now or never. Well, now or
okay.
next meeting. Now or next meeting. We're gonna wait till next meeting. We're gonna keep working on this because we're not.
So then that has us having to think. I kind of feel I understand what Christopher is saying about, you know, getting momentum and moving forward. But do we want to bring in, you know, a subcommittee, because that's part of this, okay, of the grant is creating that subcommittee, okay? Do we want to involve all those people at this point only to say, you know, 5 weeks down the road, look, we're not going to make it, let's hold off? Or do we hold off and, you know, or approach it as a 2023? As a 2023.
Are we bringing in
other words, I don't want to get a bunch of people involved in committees and whatever without us having a chance to get on for June 2022.
Well, who decided we were doing a subcommittee for this one? I thought we were kind of plowing through it.
Well, that's part of what the schedule that Jennifer gave us. We spoke about that before, about, you know, having to create. Yeah.
But we don't have to create a subcommittee, and we haven't yet. So at this point,
Jennifer, do we have to have a subcommittee?
No. And Katie, just a quick question. What would be that deadline for a placeholder? What does the Board of Selectmen require?
Hold on, let me reread that email. The articles must be submitted no later than Monday, April 11th. Like, we can put a placeholder in now, but
but you don't have to.
Yeah, the article has to be placed in by the April 11th at noon. So, I mean, you don't have to put a placeholder in, you can just hand in the article as long as we get the article in. The placeholders are basically to start running it down and getting it together. If we, like, the planning board has a few of them because they have them like pretty much tidied up. They're just tweaking some of them. You know, they're like, there's like 3 of these. This is what we're doing. We'll get you the full article, but here's a placeholder. We're not even at that point to even think about a placeholder.
No.
So, but we have to have it in by April 11th. So, but like Chris said, if we got to start somewhere, so let's just start, you know, and we've already started a few of those. You had like 1 or 2 of them checked off. Let's just keep plugging the list and see how,
Yeah, I agree. I think often when you have a deadline in front of you, it forces you to move forward, and then closer to that date and decide, you know what, we need more time. It's going to have to be a special town meeting if the town will do it, or next year. But I think moving forward, and you know, Katie, you're on the Board of Selectmen, just being aware, having them be aware that the EDC, and communicating also with the planning board that the EDC is going to continue working and plugging forward and see how it is. You know, if it feels like it'll make it for this April date and a town meeting in June, or if it thinks, so, well, we're going to still move forward, but we're going to push it off until a special town meeting, if there is one, or next year.
trust me, there's always a special.
Oh, there is. Okay. Yeah.
Always. We always have one in September. We just have crap to deal with. So, but yeah. So like I said, let's just start plugging away and see how far we get. And if we feel comfortable, great. If we don't, then let's focus on and go for that.
Okay.
Okay. And what was our decision regarding the subcommittee?
We haven't had one.
Yeah, I don't think we need one for this. I think we're currently acting as that.
Okay. Okay. If that keeps us, conform to the grant or what's, required for the grant, then I'm good with that. Jennifer, okay?
Yeah, no, and there was no requirement in the grant. I think it was just giving you the options that you had out there for formations of committees. But I think as, this committee moves forward and you develop, as you're developing, you're seeking input from all of those boards and committees so that they feel involved as well as other stakeholders.
Okay, good. That says a lot. I have one question that, and then I'm finished. That is more, I guess, more germane to the ag accessory bylaw. When we talk about committees there, Jennifer, I just want your expertise. Do you think that someone from the Board of Health might be a committee that we should include in that?
I think maybe reaching out to them as you would another committee, but I don't see them necessarily having to have a seat on the committee. I think for the ag, I think what you have proposed is good.
Okay, good. Okay, good. And I did send out to some of our to police department, our chief of police, and our fire chief as well, their input. I sent them the bylaws that we had and asked them for their input in regards to public safety. So we could just kind of incorporate that into that. Okay, good. Thank you for answering that. Okay. Any other questions or suggestions from anybody?
Jennifer, can you make me the host again?
Oh, was I still, I'm sorry.
Yes.
I didn't realize I was still the host. Okay. Let's see how I do that here.
You open up the participants and then you click on more. And then there'll be a drop-down menu to invite to make host.
Okay, let's see. Oh, here we go. So I'm going to, she's asking me to rename. Okay, let's see. See, this is why you shouldn't have made me the host.
Yep, so you should just click on participants.
Yep, I got that, and I see all the names, 6.
Yep.
Yep.
So then if you hover your mouse over me, you're going to get a button that says mute, and then a button that says more. If you click on that more button, you'll get a drop-down menu, and that drop-down menu will say make host.
There you go. I was clicking my name, so. Okay, you are the host.
What do you have, a photographic memory, Chris?
I was walking through it. Just I got to be able to stop the recording when we finish, so.
All right, I want to make a motion to end this meeting because I can't sit still any longer.
And I'll see you
second
Tuesday.
Thank you, everyone. We'll review the minutes at our next meeting. Thank you, Jennifer, for being here. That was so helpful.